Okay, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon as we announce the indictments of four men responsible for supplying multiple kilos of fentanyl and cocaine into our community, as well as illegally possessing nearly 40 firearms. The combination of deadly drugs and guns has no place in our community. Too often we've seen the devastation of gun violence and drugs as they wreak havoc on families who mourn the loss of a loved one, shot or killed, or who overdosed and died. We have to put an end to this increased violence in our communities when people use guns and distribute drugs on the street corners of our neighborhoods. In making today's announcement, I'm joined by a number of partners, DEA Special Agent in Charge, Jason Forget, ATF Special Agent in Charge, Tony Crosby, chiefs and executive leaders in local law enforcement who worked this case, the men and women of DEA Group 51, and the professionals in the Office of Attorney General's Organized Crime Unit who worked with law enforcement to investigate this matter. This investigation began in August of 2022 and was a collaborative effort led by the DEA through the high-intensity drug trafficking area program, Group 51, my office's Organized Crime Unit, and ATF. The four defendants named in these indictments are members of a criminal enterprise that has been operating since at least February of this year. They engage in a pattern of organized criminal activity, including the distribution of controlled dangerous substances and the illegal possession of firearms. They are charged with as many as 173 criminal counts. Just this year alone, nearly 400 Marylanders have been killed by the use of a gun, and another 900 plus people have been injured. That's over 1,300 children, women, men whose lives have been irreparably altered or taken from us due to gun violence in 2023 in Maryland, with 3 months remaining in the year. One victim is too many. 1,300 is an outrage. It's a crisis. These numbers are a senseless reminder of the deadly consequences of gun trafficking and violence in our community. As you see on the table before you, this successful investigation and takedown led to the seizure of a total of 37 firearms. Of these 37 firearms, one Tech 9 assault pistol, two AK-style assault weapons, three AR-15 style rifles, including two ghost guns, and three handguns equipped with Glock switches, which turns a standard semi-automatic handgun into the equivalent of a machine gun. Our neighborhoods are not battlefields, and these guns have no place in our communities. As you will hear when we lay out the facts of our case, investigators also recovered thousands of rounds of various types of ammunition, multiple high-capacity magazines, all illegally possessed by prohibited persons with prior criminal convictions, all possessed in close proximity to drug paraphernalia, or drug proceeds. Notably, each of the defendants has at least one charge of illegally possessing a firearm based on a prior disqualifying conviction. One of those convictions for one defendant is for second-degree murder. Guns in the wrong hands under illegal circumstances only lead to danger for all of us. In addition to this arsenal of weapons, investigators recovered over 8.5 kilograms of fentanyl. That's enough to kill literally millions of people. Though the operation of this drug trafficking organization mostly took place in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Howard County, evidence gathered during this investigation revealed drugs were destined for as far away as Maryland's Eastern Shore. Organized activity like this affects all of us. The arrest of these defendants and disruption of this organization may have potentially saved countless lives and spared families the pain of suffering caused by addiction, death, and the violence associated with the illegal drug trade. Today, because of this case, our communities are safer. Marylanders can expect more of what you are seeing here today. With more resources from the governor and the General Assembly, we could disrupt and dismantle even more criminal organizations and take more gun traffickers and guns off the streets. As local, state, and federal law enforcement partners come together to dismantle this illegal trafficking of guns and drugs, we are going to stop them from controlling and coming into our communities, and we will prosecute those responsible. So again, I want to thank my criminal division chief, Katie Dorian, Assistant Attorneys General Paul Halliday and Megan Green, who will prosecute this case, and the members of DEA Group 51 and the ATF, and all the local law enforcement partners who work tirelessly on this investigation. Additionally, we appreciate the support of Howard County's state's attorneys, Rich Gibson. And for now, more information and facts on the case, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Katie Dorian.
Good afternoon. I'm going to provide a brief recitation of the facts, and for anyone who wants a copy of the indictment, we can make that available for you afterwards. So as the Attorney General said, this investigation has resulted in the indictment of 4 individuals. Ronald Rawls, 35, of Baltimore City, Corey Frazier, 37, of Howard County, and 2 additional defendants who have not yet been apprehended, so we're not going to release their names at this time, but both of whom are from Baltimore County. As a reminder, an indictment is merely an accusation of wrongdoing and not a statement of guilt. The defendants are all presumed innocent unless and until the state proves them guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. The defendants are members of a criminal enterprise that has been operating since at least February 2023 and was engaged in a pattern of organized criminal activity, including the distribution of large quantities of fentanyl and cocaine and the illegal possession of firearms. Ronald Rawls and Corey Frazier were higher-level members of the organization and operated as suppliers of the drugs and firearms. They provided bulk quantities of fentanyl and cocaine to mid-level suppliers and street-level drug shops. The other 2 defendants were mid-level suppliers and members of the organization who received the drugs from Frazier and Rawls and would then repackage them for street-level distribution. Each of the defendants is charged with conspiracy, participation in a criminal organization, use of firearms in connection with drug trafficking, volume dealer, distribution or possession with the intent to distribute of fentanyl and or cocaine, and other related charges. One of the drug shops supplied by this organization was located near the intersection of Cranston Avenue and North Woodington Road in Baltimore City, where numerous individuals would conduct hand-to-hand drug transactions on a daily basis. The defendants maintained multiple stash locations for the storage, packaging, and purchase of and sale of bulk quantities of narcotics. These stash locations included several luxury apartments in Baltimore City, which were leased in other individuals' names. Members and associates of this enterprise rented properties and titled vehicles and real property in names of other people in order to disguise their association with the enterprise's criminal activity and to avoid detection by law enforcement. During the investigation, law enforcement observed the defendants at various stash locations in the Cranston Avenue drug shop in Baltimore City. Rawls and Frazier were frequently observed carrying bags or suitcases to or from the stash locations and drug shop. All 4 defendants possessed or transported firearms in connection with their drug trafficking activities, and all of the defendants, as the Attorney General said, are prohibited from possessing firearms based on prior criminal convictions. Frazier is prohibited based on a prior conviction for second-degree murder, a crime of violence, as well as a prior conviction for a drug felony. Rawls is prohibited based on a prior conviction for a drug felony as well, and the other 2 defendants are, one is possessed based on a prior crime of violence, and one is prohibited based on a prior drug felony. The organization also maintained a storage locker in Baltimore County that was used for the storage of firearms, ammunition, magazines, other gun accessories, as well as a kilo press, which is used to repress large quantities of drugs to make it easier to transport and store. Between July 24th and July 25th, 2023, 7 search warrants were executed in connection with this investigation. At Corey Frazier's apartment in Annapolis Junction, Howard County, there were 7.4 grams of fentanyl, a drug ledger, approximately $39,000 in cash, and a handgun. At Ronald Rawls' residence in Baltimore City, law enforcement recovered approximately $63,000 in cash, a ledger, multiple cell phones, and a handgun. Rawls was present at the location at the time of the search warrant and attempted to flee from police by jumping from the 8th floor balcony of his apartment, causing himself significant injuries and requiring hospitalization. At a stash location on East Fort Avenue in Baltimore City, the criminal organization possessed approximately 4 kilograms of fentanyl, cutting agents, paraphernalia, including digital scales, and 8 firearms, including 2 AK-style assault weapons and 6 handguns. 3 of those handguns were equipped with Glock switches, which, as the Attorney General told you, essentially convert the handgun into a machine gun. At a stash location on East Saratoga Street in Baltimore City, the criminal organization possessed an additional 3.5 kilograms of fentanyl and 3 kilograms of cocaine, as well as paraphernalia, including digital scales, and approximately $7,000 in cash. At the storage locker in Baltimore County, the criminal organization possessed over $100,000 in cash, 25 firearms, many that you see here, several high-capacity magazines, bulletproof body armor, and approximately 1,000 rounds of assorted caliber ammunition. The firearms included a Tech-9 assault pistol and 3 AR-15 style rifles, 2 of which were privately made, untraceable ghost guns with no serial numbers. An additional 1,297 grams of fentanyl mixture, $27,000 in cash, and 2 handguns were recovered from the homes of the 2 other defendants. Rawls and Frazier are being held without bail and are set for an initial appearance this Wednesday, October 4th, in the Circuit Court for Howard County. Law enforcement continues to seek the whereabouts of the 2 other defendants, at which time their indictments will be unsealed. And at this time, I will turn it over to DEA Special Agent in Charge, Jared Pogé.
Good afternoon. The DEA works tirelessly to safeguard the American public by carrying out daily investigations and operations to disrupt and dismantle drug trafficking organizations and to prosecute criminals, like the ones indicted in this case, that pose a threat to our communities and put citizens in danger. Our primary focus is to combat the current fentanyl poisoning crisis and the resulting violence in neighborhoods. This is of utmost importance to me personally, especially since so many individuals that die from fentanyl didn't know that they were taking it. Actually, recently, DEA Administrator Ann Milgram shared that DEA labs determined that 7 out of 10 pills had a potentially deadly amount of fentanyl, and that's up from recent estimates where 6 out of every 10 pills had a deadly amount of fentanyl. This revelation highlights the severity of the opioid epidemic and the urgent need for measures to be taken to combat this issue. These criminal organizations profit by pushing these dangerous and deadly drugs, such as fentanyl, into neighborhoods throughout Maryland, disregarding the value of human life. Considering that only 2 milligrams of fentanyl, enough to fit at the end of a sharpened pencil, is enough to kill a human being, the amount of fentanyl seized in this investigation could have potentially killed 4 million citizens. But it's not only about drugs. These are dangerous criminals, which is exhibited by the amount of firearms seized during this operation and shown to you all today during this case. The efforts outlined today by Attorney General Brown demonstrate by working together, we can systematically demonstrate that by dismantling these street gangs and criminal networks, we can reduce violent crime in our neighborhoods. I'm grateful for the hard work of the DEA teams, the AG's litigation efforts, and for our law enforcement partners with whom we successfully executed these arrests and seized illegal drugs and guns from these predators. Together, we are sending a resounding message to drug trafficking networks, their leaders, and anyone facilitating their illegal activities that we will not tolerate such actions and will work tirelessly to bring them to justice. Now I'd like to pass the mic to ATF SAC, Tony Crosby.
Thank you, SAC Forget. It's investigations like this where ATF and our law enforcement partners collaborate on every day, working to address the devastating effects of violence in Baltimore. Not only have multiple defendants been taken off the street, but all these firearms and drugs that you see here, too, that could have ended someone's life. Guns are used as tools by these drug trafficking organizations to threaten and inflict violence, whether it is for retaliation or expanding their territory. Adding machine gun conversion devices and guns with no identifiable markings into the equation escalates danger and shows how far the criminals go to circumvent law to acquire firearms. All of us here today focus on a shared goal of creating a safer Baltimore, maximizing the specialties every agency involved to ensure our resources are being leveraged. This includes programs like ATF's National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, or NIBIN, which helps detect connections and patterns in crimes through recovered shell casings. We will continue to work with our local, state, and federal partners on this case and many more to identify the people wreaking havoc in this city and finding where they are getting their weapons to do it. Thank you.
At this time, we will open up for any questions. Alexis?
Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45. First and foremost, does this enterprise have a name?
My name?
Paul?
No. We have a name for, yes.
No, there's no name that we know. No.
Okay. So, in looking at these 4 individuals, once you saw who they were and looked into their criminal past, is this a case, are these cases where you believe they should have not been on the streets in the first place?
Look, anyone who wants to do harm in our community shouldn't be on the streets of Maryland in the first place. Now, I think probably what you're alluding to is the fact they've had prior convictions, prior arrests. Look, our focus today is what we need to do is to investigate the proliferation of guns and drugs on our streets, take them off, perfect cases, bring them to trial, and get convictions. That's our goal, and to seek justice on behalf of Marylanders.
These weapons here, the 37 firearms that were seized, have you been able to determine if any of them have been used in other crimes? And if not, is that something that will happen, that research?
All of the firearms that are recovered in this case and any other case that we investigate are processed through the Forensic Crime Lab, which will in turn, run them through NIBIN to see if they are connected to other crimes.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, I want to make sure. Okay. So the three of the 4 suspects are not from Baltimore City, yet the majority of the activity was happening here in the city. Do I have that accurate? And could somebody speak to that reality?
So this is, kind of a typical drug organization that we see in these cases operating in lots of different counties. A lot of the activity you've heard in this that's included in the indictment is in Baltimore City. There's also Baltimore County activity and then Howard County activity. But that's correct that only one of the defendants is from Baltimore City.
So the city was not so much the headquarters of this, or what would you say?
I think I wouldn't call it a headquarters. It was an organization because we're not talking about a street level organization. We're talking about a higher level organization.
Tony?
So you guys said that they've been operating since February 2023, but in here it says investigation found that they were operating since August 2022. So did the investigation start in February 2023?
So the investigation began as early as the investigation began as early as the August date. Through the course of the investigation, they determined additional information, which led them to focus their efforts on the 4 defendants that they talked about today, beginning in the later date that you provided.
Okay.
Anything else? With this activity, is it believed that through this activity and through this operation, other violent crimes were committed, such as shootings and homicides?
That's not something we can answer at this time.
Is that something that's going to be looked into or is being looked into?
Well, as the ATF special agent in charge said, the gun certainly will be looked into in terms of any criminal activity that they're connected to, but all we can say on that is what's in the indictment at this time.
And I see that all 4 names are in this release. So there's 4, right? And then, but you're looking for the 2?
There are 4 defendants, yes.
So you're still looking for 2 of them?
Yes.
Could somebody talk about the efforts to track them down?
Fortunately, we can't discuss that at this time because the indictments are sealed, and I can speak with you after the press conference to kind of explain a little more about that.
But investigators are actively searching for them?
It's a part of our investigation, yes. Any photojournalists have any questions? All right, thank you all. That'll conclude.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.